What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Fab Freddie Fox, America's Big Brother, and we back with a Saturday night sit down. And tonight, I get to sit down with Kendrick Constant. What's going on, my man?
What's going on, Freddie?
How you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me on.
No, of course, man. I'm glad to have you on. Me way to work this out, man. You know, we met through a mutual friend of ours, Brandon Gadoris, right? You know, and like before the show, we was talking just about communication and getting out there and talking to people, right? And because I put my voice out there, I met Brandon, right?
Right.
And I had him on my show when we did an interview, and I've been working with him ever since, right? Like every Tuesday we sit down because he has this program called 21 to 21, right? Trying to get 21 people to 21,000. You aware, right?
I'm a part of it.
You part of it? Oh, what's hold on, wait a minute. Okay, Kendrick, that's what's up, man. Well, glad to meet a fellow alum, right? Cool, right. Man. It's crazy, small world, man. So, you know, because of him, right, you know, I've been out there doing some great things with my show. I'd have my 50th event, right, my 50th episode, you know, and I put together an event in 2 days with his help, you know, so it's a beautiful thing getting out there and spreading the word, right, but, you know, I told him I wanted to do something with the community and get out there, and he brought your name up. He said, listen, I know a guy named Kendrick, and he's doing a back-to-school event for the kids this weekend. You know, when you want to get out there, and we linked up, and you know, you had everything going for me, and I appreciate that. I'm so sorry that I wasn't able to make it, man. Things came up last minute.
No worries.
You know, but part of that, right? I wanted to be able to sit down and talk to you and find out what, you know, a little bit more about you, right? And for, like, I always break it down for everybody. You know, the whole reason I started my podcast is, you know, as we know in our community, right, we got a bad rap with dads, right, or, you know, father figures, right? A lot of my friends that I know, their dads weren't in the picture for one reason or the other, right? They walked away. They either died when they were young, in jail, or, you know, amongst many of those things, right? You know, it's all too familiar. And, you know, growing up, it was very hard to figure out how to be a man, right? Like you're looking for all these different role models, and you tend to the streets and stuff. And, you know, luckily, you know, I'm 36 years old, and I grew up in an era where, you know, the drug dealers and the gang members on the streets, they were really looking out for the young kids, right? They check our report cards and give us money to go to the store, you know, if things was popping off, so let's go home. And it was really more of that sense of that community. But nowadays, you know, it's shifted, right? Like they want to harm these young kids because they know they're not going to get a lot of time, or they can, you know what I'm saying, like cover up and then just use them and abuse them, right, for their own personal gain. And I want to sit down with men who are doing things for the community, right? Positive things for the community, giving back, like yourself. You know, so, you know, I'm glad you're able to sit down here and talk to me. And how I always break it down with everybody. My very first question, right? If you had to think about it, to you, what are some of the main characteristics or qualities that make up a good man or a good person?
That's a great question. I did want to say the back to school fundraiser, it was a team effort. I worked with DJ E Money, who actually, like, he was the first person who did it 5 years ago. And him, myself, and another social media food blogger, what's the Vibe Media, we all work together on it. So I like to make sure credit goes where it's due. To your question, characteristics of a man, that's a great question. I feel like self-awareness is very important. You know, not being swayed easily by what's around you, that really shows strong character. And I think strong character ties hand in hand with self-awareness. So being a protector, being a provider, you know, being a man of your word, you know, meaning what you say and acting on it. What else? You know, just being fortified, 10 toes down, you know, standing on the truth. I grew up in a Christian household, so faith, trust in God, and fear of God. That's what I believe should be a core value of a man. I don't think you go in the wrong direction if you're true to it. You know, yeah.
And that's a great thing. I think the very first thing you displayed a different characteristic or quality, right? And being humble, right, and giving credit where credit is due, right. Before anything was done, is like I need to make sure that I give credit to the people that help me out, right, and that takes a lot, you know. I mean, I've been, you know, we all know that, right? We've been part of a group, right, and you try to all help out, and one person tries to take credit for everything, and we all know how we look at that person, right? But I think what you just did, right, was a great characteristic of a leader, right? Making sure that people who are involved to do a great thing get the credit and get recognized. So that is an amazing thing that you just did. So I appreciate you and I commend you on that. And so, and the other things you listed, right, what was is true, right? We want to be accountable and hold ourselves, be 10 toes down, like you said, right? And being a man of your word is key. And I think we know a lot of those things because as we know that, right? As a kid, and when your dad's not there, we've had those promises like, "Well, I'm gonna come pick you up," right? And he doesn't show up, or we're gonna go do this, we're gonna do that, and it doesn't happen. Even just even like for me, like I said, I was blessed enough for my dad to be home, right? And I would invite him to my baseball games, or to any of those things like my choir events or anything like that. And it was for one reason or another an excuse not to go, So he never came to those things. So even there, that just kind of hurt to a sense, right? To a point where I kind of knew that that was a pattern, so I had to make sure I corrected that. When I needed him to be somewhere, I told him straight to his face, "I need you to be here. I don't want any fans or bus, no excuses, no nothing. Like I need you to be here, right? Because
Gotcha.
that's important to me." So there's a lot of great things that you said there, man. So thank you for sharing that. And part of being right a good person or a good man, right? One has to have great morals, right, and things that they hold near and dear to their heart and live by on a day to day basis. So for you, what would you say some of your key morals that you live by?
Key morals, definitely integrity. It really bothers me when I say something and I don't follow through with it, even if the person doesn't care.
Mhm.
Like it'll weigh on my mind. I said, "Oh, let's go out for lunch," and then I never followed through with that. That bothers me. Um, Moral values, just being honest. Um, I think like really leading yourself is important to me. Like it bothers me when I see people where their environment quickly shapes them.
Mhm.
So I think leading yourself is important. Um, what else for morals? Nothing else really comes to mind there.
And it's funny how you say those things because it ties back to something that you said in the beginning, right? To the very first question. And that was self awareness,
Mhm.
right? Which is huge, right? And a lot of people um, kind of take that for granted, right?
Mhm.
They don't understand that, right? People who, and I commend them, right? Like people who know who they are and they can, be straight faced and say things, you know what I mean? Like without, remorse or anything like that, because they're so sure of themselves is something that I envied so much growing up because I had that problem with myself where I was a heavy set kid, so a lot of kids made fun of me and they would tease me. So it really put me in the mentality that being me was wrong, right? So I started to, like I say, try to be a chameleon and to adapt and try to shape myself to fit the environment, like you were saying, right? Or fit the people that I am. But in doing so, I completely lost myself, and it wasn't until, like I said, recently, these past couple of years, going through a lot of depression and all this anxiety and stuff, where I really had to sit down and become self-aware, right? Ask myself these questions. Who are you, right? Like, what do you like doing? Are you doing that because you really like it or because other people told you that it was cool and they liked it?
Right.
And having those really tough conversations with yourself is I once said, right, a man's path to enlightenment may often drive him to insanity. You know what I mean? Because
Mhm.
you're trying to figure all these things out and it's just so intense and you're questioning every single thing. And if you're not really mentally strong, you'll snap. So I think that's very key, like you said, is self awareness. We all really need to take some time to really ask ourselves, who am I? Why do I like these things? Why does that make me tick? To better understand that because that's when you can really master yourself as a person,
Yeah.
right?
And I think that's important. And like it I don't think no matter how strong you are, your environment will shape you.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's that saying, like, you're average of the five people you hang around most.
Absolutely.
So no matter how strong you are, you can still control your environment where you choose to stay, who you choose to hang around with. Um, I was watching this video. And it was like You know, it, you don't let, how did it go? It's like, if water gets into the ship,
Oh, I know what you're
you
saying. You're
know,
saying that the
the
boat doesn't sink because of
yeah,
the water that's around it. It sinks
yeah,
because of the water that gets into it.
exact. And I've really thought about that over and over again. Like, you have a choice to be a good sailor,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just because, you know, bad water, bad people might enter your environment, you still got to sail that ship.
Right.
It's your choice whether to go through easier waters or to go where, the waters are a little rough. But you can control who has access to your core, who has access to your ship, um, what boundaries to set, and how well to sail that ship.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I think it goes to one of the biggest things where it says is that you can't control everything that happens to you,
mhm,
right? What you control is how you react to it, right?
that's
That
sailing the ship.
exactly what your point is,
Exactly.
right? And having that mentality, because that's one of my biggest things, like with my daughter, and one of the things that I try to correct her every single time, when she comes to me and she says, "Oh, so and so made me upset," or "So and so made me sad."
Mhm,
No, 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 no. Nobody makes you feel anything. You decide whether you want to feel sad about that situation
mhm,
or you want to feel good about that. You got to remember that you control your feelings. Don't let anybody else do that.
exactly. Yeah.
Because the moment, and I've come to realize that, right? Because the moment you let other people control your feelings, right, then they control you, right? They know how to pick and prod you and get you to do what you wouldn't normally do.
And that's what I mean too by, like, be careful with the water,
Mm-hmm.
because you could have a friend in your circle who knows you so well, they know exactly what to do to get you to tick,
Right,
you
right,
know.
right.
So you just got to be careful, got to be aware, mindful. Um, yeah.
It's funny because as you mentioned that, right, it brought back like across this quote was by Mike Tyson, and he said one of the biggest lessons he learned was that not every person you fight is your enemy, and not every person that helps you is your friend.
Exactly.
And I was like, yo, that's some savage stuff because there's another song right that it brings me back to it's by Cuban Link, I believe it's Letter to Pun, but in the song he says it's the closest ones to you that'll stick it in and cut you, right,
That
because they have
that's
the
it.
access.
Exact. That's only because they're close.
Right.
You know, if someone else was as close, they could do the same thing. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just
So I mean, huge points that we brought up there, man. So I'm glad we touched on that. And part of the show, like I said, right too, is role models and the effect that our parents and our dads or males have in our lives, right? And then you mentioned earlier, right, you grew up in a Christian household and things like that. So for you, growing up, what was your relationship with your dad like?
so. My dad, and it's funny. Whenever I mention my dad to anyone older, they like step back and they're like, "Oh, I know how your dad is." Like he has a don't care mentality, and he's been that way. So we're not the tightest, but I respect him.
Mm-hmm.
Like as I've grown older, I've realized just how much he's accomplished. Like it was just him and his dad in South Norwalk, where his dad was tough too,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes that it's passed down generation.
Absolutely.
We know it, but like if you're able to figure out a way and not let that get to you, and do your best to create an environment where your kids could thrive, um, much respect, you know. So we don't have the best relationship, but the respect is there.
I'm gonna pry a little bit, right? Because I'm definitely interested, like you said, that right. The respect is there, and having that right, and like you said, that people when they mention, you mention who your dad is, they just know that he's a no nonsense kind of guy. So, and I guess a personal question to you right now: do you feel that you really that it's a respect for him for the positive reasons, or more respect out of fear?
No, at one point it was. At one point, like, there's At one point I couldn't be in bed past 9. That was an issue. 9 a.m. So me being out of bed was out of fear. Um, Now I think I understand
Mm-hmm.
more. He was trying to make me the there's a Haitian saying "Mun pa dormi no journée," like people don't sleep when the sun's out. And that's his mentality where it's like 4 a.m. he's up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I think now it's more out of respect where challenging conversations had to be had and back and forth where we're in a better place now.
I had the same thing with my dad, right? And you know, growing up, which is so weird because I've always remembered. I remember like early on, right? Me and my dad growing up, and we used to like watch Monday Night Raw,
Yeah.
and we would like play wrestle on the bed and stuff. And then I don't know what happened or when it's changed, but like then we just ended up watching wrestling in separate rooms, and
Yeah.
just I would walk over and say, "Oh man, did you see that move?" or something like that, and I go back to my room, and then I can, and then there was other times where like my mom would use my dad as a fear tactic, right? Like I'm gonna tell your
Mm,
dad this, dad, whatever, and then it's just like, oh man, I remember one time, I did something and they told my dad and he was coming home and he was like, yeah, your dad's coming home to talk to you. And he gets home. And then I remember hearing him come in and I hear the fridge open and I hear the cracking of a beer and he starts drinking it. And I'm like, oh shit. And then, time's going by and he's going to come talk and I hear another one crack open and then another one and another one. And I'm like, oh my God, like if he comes in here and just like beats me senseless, like the anxiety and the fear, like just that, like that fear. Like I remember just sitting in my bed, like if I fall asleep, like what I mean? And it was just out of that, like that fear tactic, right? And when he came in and we had the conversation went a lot better than I expected, but just that fear and that anxiety that that they used, my mom used on me with him, for that caused a lot of fear. And then he said some things to me one time when I was overweight and really remember telling my mom that I hated him at one point. But as we got older, like I felt like you too. Like I sat down and I got to see a different side of them, right? As I started to really watch and analyze what they're doing. And that's really what taught me, like as a parent, is that they don't know what they're doing. You know what I mean? Like nobody knows what they're doing when they have kids. Like
yeah.
everybody who has kids, they're learning it for the very first time. They're figuring it out. And it doesn't matter how many scholars or how many people who had kids before you come and try to give you advice. It doesn't mean anything because your kid is going to be completely different than anybody else's. You know what I mean? Like, so what good is it going to do for you? So I think it's big. So like you said, that you kind of realize that because now me and my dad, I think we have a lot better relationship and we, talk a lot more and really have that bond. So I think that's cool. And maybe it's the thing how it's a
And like
father son thing.
I feel like sometimes space makes it better.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you like need space from someone to like have a better relationship. I don't know if that was the case for you, but I did hear that. It's like after moving out, that's where
Yeah, yeah. You
you
kind of
know.
get to say. I think it's the same thing. I moved out when, man. I, I I know my mom was so mad at me. I moved out so dirty, and I'll admit it to this day. Like I kid you not. Like I told my mom that I was moving the day before I moved. The day before I left, I was like, yeah,
Sheesh.
the moving truck's coming in the morning. I got my apartment in Bridgeport, so I'm gonna be leaving. Yeah, and I left, and that was it. And it caused a lot of turmoil because like my dad was very my dad spoiled me a lot. Like as much as he tried to use him as a fear tactic, you know what I mean? Like if I wanted something, my mom would say no. My dad would like end up going behind her back and do it for me anyway. You know what I mean? Like
Gotcha.
so, he would do all those things. So when I left, he blamed her a lot. And
Mm.
I mean, he did have a point because she would just have this thing to come in my room and just start arguing me about stuff. I'm about to be out with my friends like 3 o'clock in the morning. I come home and then she comes in like 6 in the morning, like kicking in my door, like screaming about the plate or the thing that I left in the sink. And it's just like, I can't do this every single day. Like, I mean, like, so
Gotcha.
I had to leave, you know? And that's again when you start seeing it from the outside, right? Because you're so close to it. Like, we've all been there, right? Like, when you're too close to a situation, you can't really see what's happening outside of your field of
Mm-hmm.
vision. You feel me? So you got to take a step back to get a broader view
Yeah.
to understand. That's when I started to understand a lot more, like what my dad is and what he's trying to do and what I've learned from him and the things that he taught me. and learn to appreciate those things. So for you, right, growing up now and now that you have a better understanding and seeing that, looking back, what do you think has been the biggest thing you learned from your dad?
Um, biggest thing I learned from my dad, a lot of lessons. I think he really gave me the freedom to fail.
Hmm.
Like I remember we would go to the McMahon track, right?
Okay.
Myself, all my cousins, sisters, and I don't know if I just threw that off. Um, but there was a chain there, right? There was a chain, and he said, "Don't jump over it; it's too high." Now, me as I don't know if I was 11 or 10, I said, it's not high. I'm gonna still
Challenge
jump over
accepted.
it. Exactly, exactly. So I went, jumped, tripped, scraped my knee, and he was like, "I told you." And that's really been his mantra. Where it's like sometimes you need to learn for yourself.
Hmm.
Um, like there's some lessons you could be taught, some that are learned the hard way. And the hard way teaches more,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, and I seen that there's like the saying in this quote. Well, I for myself, like I always had, I say is the saying that I say in Spanish is like, con la cara contra el piso, with my face against the floor. Like that's how I like to learn.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like I need to trip, fall, learn, get banged up or whatever, and then that's when it's kind of gonna stick to service lesson. And then started to hear something recently too. It's just like this clip where it says, children learn the most when they're doing dangerous things safely, right? Because they got to get that sense of fear and they understand and they kind of, make a mistake and then they adapt, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, like it's cause and effect, when you have a kid. Like, so I think that's great that, like you said, that your dad lets you to fail, right? And I try to do my same thing with my kids. Like, I just watch them and they're trying to figure something out, not to try to immediately help them, but
Mm-hmm.
like, let me see how you're going to figure this out. Let me just watch you and allow you to make mistakes, right? Because that's how you're going to learn, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they said, was it like Thomas Edison? Failed 1,000 times making a light bulb. It's like, no, I found 1,000 ways how not to do it. Right.
Exactly.
Like everything is a way in how you put it. Right. Like
Yeah,
you
yeah.
learn something. And it's so important for us to make mistakes and learn. And I think that they say, you know what? A empty wallet, a broken heart, and an empty stomach will teach you some of the most valuable lessons in your life.
Right.
Right. Like that pain, that sorrow, because those are things that you never want to feel again.
Mm-hmm.
To the point where, like, PTSD, right? You feel something so intense, right? That it traumatizes you so deeply that you would do anything and everything never to feel that again.
Right.
So it's important that we do allow our kids to fail, right? Be there to comfort them, understand them, but allow them to know cause and effect, right? Ups and downs, pros and cons, and things like that. You know what I mean? Like Rocky said, the world ain't all sunshine and rainbows, right?
Exactly.
So we got to start adapting and learning those things. So I think it's very key, like your dad, like you said, your dad had taught you that, right, or allowed you to fail, and doing those things. So growing up and you did that. Now we talked about before the show, right? There's so many things that you're getting involved in, right? And you started telling me about a story and stuff, and I wanted to cut you off for a second because, and I allow you to tell your story because it reminded me of something else on there. But everything, right, happens for a reason. I believe in life, right? Like everything happens for a reason. You got to make sure, like DMX said, right? Everything is either a blessing or a lesson. It all depends on how you look at it, right?
Right.
So I'll allow you to tell a story and start you off. But it all started with like a text message, right? Like that's how it breaks down.
Right. So it all started with a text message, where you know, I was put in the group chat because someone transposed the numbers and they were just running. And I didn't pay it any mind until the next day, where I looked through and it was a group of people I don't know. A group of like 50-year-old white people, and they were going on a party bus to the city, and they're like, it's someone's birthday, they're celebrating. So jokingly, I was like, you know, either the party bus missed me or I'm in the wrong group chat. And they ran with it. They're like, okay, new guys coming with us for the 60th to go skiing. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm with it. Then they like put a picture of them with yeah, a picture of all of them at a dinner, and they were like, "Oh, this is a good looking group." So I took a picture of myself and like cropped it in, and I was like, "It sure is," and they thought that was hilarious. And then my friends kept encouraging me, like, "You'd be the one to pull it off," and I was like, "I don't know why you're saying that," but that kind of encouraged me to keep going. So anytime I saw an opportunity, if I was doing something ski related, I would message them. So I went ice skating and I messaged that to them. I'm like, I'm practicing. I went paintballing and there was a ski lift to go to paintballing. And I'm like, I'm practicing. Fast forward to the next summer, they had gone to a music studio in the
So I don't drop anything. Okay. New guy? Yeah. New guy.
And this is the new guy. Say hi to the new guy.
What's the new guy? Hello, new guy. You guys working out.
Oh shoot. Looks like the party bus left me again. Hey Mimi, new guy here. Party bus left me, but I hope you have a great birthday. I'll be there for the 68th in NYC. Have a good one.
You guys working out.
New guy, new guy, new guy.
New guy. Live in New guy. New guy. Live in
One time I realized like there is really pockets, like different bubbles, and mind you, this whole experience was uncomfortable for me. But I like to push my
Right.
comfort zone because like you learn more.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this pocket, there was a very popular song at the time, and none of them knew it. And that was like shocking to me because it's like the most relevant. Um, but you know, I know how to play drums. I played drums with them. We played songs like Honky Tonk. Never heard of that song, but we kept in contact after that, where every now and then, and his so they're all investment bankers. Um, and I realized their mentality is definitely different. Uh, 40-minute conversation with him really opened up my eyes. He's like,
Right.
call back, I'll help you. I'll help you out. One question he said when he interviews people, one question he would ask them is, "Are you paranoid?" And I'm like, what does that mean? He was like, I asked it to them to see if they're thrown off because I want to know if they're so A-type about their work, they're paranoid, and that just like opened my eyes to the mindset of like someone who's like, really well off and just that thought process. Um, but yeah, we still keep in contact, you know, good group.
You know what's so wild, man? That I always say this, right, man? And not for nothing, man. I love growing up in America, in the United States, man, because of just the diversity, man. Like I'm just so why I love doing my show and doing this and talking to people because you never know who you gonna meet or what's gonna happen. These stories gonna tell you like that's so wild, right? Like
Yeah.
that was a few years ago. It reminds me that I guess this lady she sent a text message to the wrong person, right? For like Thanksgiving. I think
Yeah,
you seen
I've
that one,
seen
right?
it.
The
Yep,
Thanksgiving one
I've
they
seen
showed
it.
up and now they celebrate every year Thanksgiving for like the
Exactly.
last like I don't know how many years, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think that's so beautiful because right, you know, I know what all the stuff that's going on in the last couple of years with race, right, and everything that's going on, and it's funny because I seen a clip with I think his name's Andrew Tate, like that the kickboxer dude, you know what I mean?
Yep, yep,
Where he was talking about like if you get like a white billionaire and a black billionaire, there's no racism, right? They're both billionaires, right? Like when you that high up in the chain, like you really don't care to, you know what I mean? Like and to see that, right, a bunch of group white guys, right, taking you in and having that conversation and lending you that ear and giving you that knowledge, like it happened for a reason, right? And you still making these connections and being able to make the most of it. I think that's absolutely amazing, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, one thing I did realize is there definitely is biases. We all have natural human biases based off
Absolutely.
their experience. Part of the reason I wanted to follow through so bad is because at the time I was working Big Four accounting, and there's no diversity there. It was hard to relate. First job out of college, hard to relate to anyone, and they're always talking about trips they've gone to different countries, and I just couldn't engage in the conversations. So when someone mentioned skiing, now I had something to talk about.
Wow. Okay.
So that kind of like lightened the burden. But the diversity is important. I'm grateful for towns like Stanford and Norwalk that you grow up in a school system where you experience everyone. But there are bubbles and pockets where it's like, even though we could get along, there's just this friction between us that doesn't have to be there, but the media says so.
Right. Right.
That divides us. And you got to be intentional about crossing that line.
And it's wild because what you just said here, right, kind of circles back to what we were talking about earlier, right? You were so uncomfortable in your place of work, right, and feeling such negative, not being able to participate and feeling left out, that you were willing to make yourself even more uncomfortable just to be able to relate in that situation because you didn't want to feel that anymore. Right. Like, so that just goes to the extent of, like you said, like being self-aware, right? Because you were aware of what it was, what you needed and what you needed to do and be able to do that to control your own feelings. Right. And being, and when we talk about like being able to manage your feelings and control your feelings, it doesn't mean like, oh, I'm not going to be upset or I'm not going to feel sad. I'm not feeling these negative energies. No, it's that I feel these things. I understand I'm feeling these things and I understand what I need to do to fix these things, not to feel this way. Right? That's what it is, right? It's not about being like, oh, I'm never gonna cry, or I'm never because I mastered my feeling. No, you just know how to cope and manage and what to do in those moments of those intense feelings. So that's cool that you were bringing on that. So now all of that, right? Like you said, you're doing a bunch of things and stuff like that. So when you got involved with the back to school event with DJ, sorry, his name was
DJ E Money and What's the Vibe Media.
So shout out to them, everybody. So good luck to you guys. They're doing great things for the community. So, how did you get involved with them to be able to put this together, right? Like, how did that transpire?
It happened very naturally. At one point, we weren't going to do it. And then I was like, no, we should do it. But everything really just flowed. Where it's
Mm.
like, even we just did monthly, not monthly, weekly meetings, 30
Right, right.
minutes. Each person contributed, added value to the project, and we communicated well. We're able to raise funds pretty easily, and it came together nice. You
Yeah,
know,
I think it's. Have you ever read the book The Secret?
I've. Is it the book where it's like if you talk or think about
It's
something,
Law of
it
Attraction.
comes?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah, I
yeah.
have.
I love that book. I love
Yeah.
that book. Shout out to my wife because she's the one that put me onto that book, and I read that for the first time. But I didn't realize how much that I was actually doing that with my life,
Mhm.
until I've actually read that book. And then when I read the book and I started understanding, and I was like, I've been doing this for quite some time, and like, there's some truth to this, right?
It's real.
And I bring that up because like we are saying before the show, right? Like I was telling you, you gotta put yourself out there, right? Talk,
Yeah.
let the people know, right? Nobody's gonna know if you don't talk about yourself or get out there. But the other thing with that, right, is that when you're supposed to be, when you're doing what you're supposed to do, right? Um, it's effortless, right? I think like one of those things that we talk about that you know what if it's meant for you,
Mhm.
can't nobody take what's meant for you,
Right.
right? So if you don't get the thing that you wanted or it doesn't happen that way or whatever, really let it go because it wasn't meant to be, right?
Agreed.
So don't really force that situation,
Yeah.
right? um and then when you're on the right track and you're doing the right thing, everything just flows
Yeah. Yeah.
effortlessly, like.
And someone recently said to me, and I was like, wow. It's like once you found your calling,
Mhm.
you know it's effortless, because even though you're doing heavy work, like I was flying around, but it didn't feel like it.
Right.
And once you found your calling, you can lead. You can comfortably lead
Mhm.
yourself and other people because you're doing what you're supposed to do, you know? So just wanted to
No,
mention that.
yeah, absolutely, man. It's and then that's like I said for myself, right? And when it comes to this show, right, and my podcast and what I'm doing,
Hmm.
like I love it with a passion. It doesn't feel like work. I enjoy being here. I look forward to it. Like every time I'm done with an episode like this, I'm on this natural high, right? Like it's just indescribable.
Right.
And I try to make, yeah, like for instance, my wife will send me people, right? Like that she sees videos and stuff like that. Like, hey, so and so, this would be a good person to be on your show. Like, shoot him a message,
Mhm.
and I'm like, all right, cool. I'll shoot her a message. Hey, so and so, this is what I do. Blah 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 blah. And minutes later, like, yo, dude, like this happened recently. Like, I got an interview with somebody next week with somebody that she mentioned, right? Send me and it was effortless, right?
Yeah.
My 50th episode, right, that I went out and I did out there. I had one location set up, right, and everything was all said and done. When I tried to get it all over there, they backed out last minute,
Mm.
right? And I put it out there, right? They said something about they didn't want to associate themselves with such a controversial topic. Um, and in the back of my head, I'm like, I'm celebrating my 50th episode, right? I'm bringing back some guests that I had before to celebrate and commend that. Like I want to have people come and bring food for one of my guys here who does a foundation for raising food. So we're raising food for the community. The only thing in there was, he's a black rapper, right? Speaking to what's going on, right? And one of the lines in the clips that I sent him was he said something along the lines about how crack was hurting the black community, right, and how the powers that be don't want us to succeed.
F and X, right?
Yeah, that's my boy. I love him. Yeah, so yeah,
Yeah, I
yes. So he was there, right? I love FNX. He's so real, right? And I made it to myself a commitment, right? I was like, when I met him and I had him on my show and he told me what he was doing, I was like, I'm gonna do an event with you. Right, I want to help support your foundation. By this event, I'm gonna help so we can raise food for your foundation. Like me and you, this is locked. Like this is what I want to do, right? So that was my commitment. So I had this episode of it, and they said that, and then I'm not gonna lie, right? Part of me was like, so it must be that. So what could I change to be able to land this venue?
Mhm.
And then my side of me said, "What are you doing?
Yeah.
What
Don't
are
change it.
you gonna adjust to who?
Right.
This is your event, like your show. Like you want to do something with somebody else. Like you're gonna." So I said, you know what? thank you, but no thank you. Like, whatever. Like, peace be with you, powers of be, love you, you know what I'm saying? Thank you for the opportunity, moving on. You know, and I went back to my network and I said, hey guys, I need a place. And I put that event together in 2 days. Like to promote it, get people out, to fill that place. 30 people I got in that place, yo. And I was there until they closed. Like the people that I bought there, what was made them that money that night. You know what I mean? And all because, number one, I put myself out there, right? Like I spoke my truth and what I wanted and what my vision was. And the people that had my vision found me because I spoke it out, right? I let it be known. They found me. And they made it so effortless. Like this, my event, and I'll put it out there, I had it over there, 30 people, an hour over there in this location, 2 days venue. I spent $0 because of the network that I had and the people that believed in me because I spoke my truth, right? And I put myself out there, right? Yeah. So, you know, we got to do that, right? Like, don't, you know, I've struggled so hard, right, with disconnecting confidence and being cocky. To me, they were one and the same. It was synonymous, right? So if I showed any type of confidence, I was just being cocky and people were going to look down on me and be like, oh, I'm so full of myself.
Right. Sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
I struggle with that. I heard this quote that said, new levels bring new devils. And it's like every time you step up, you got some new challenge waiting for you there. And in my experience, the best way to, like, you know, climb effortlessly is to protect what's important to me and protecting it with privacy. Yes. So that's why I don't necessarily, you know, say everything I'm doing until I know it's concrete. When it's concrete, then I'll share. When it's there, I'll share. But in the process, typically I keep it low key.
And, you know, and listen, like we said before, right? Not everybody that helps you is your friend, right? You know, but I think somebody has said it before, right? And they said vulnerability, right? Characteristic, which is amazing, right? Like, you don't think about being vulnerable, but sometimes you have to make yourself a little bit vulnerable. And it brings me back to one of my favorite analogies, right? The lobster analogy, right? Now, a lobster has an exoskeleton, right? So as it's getting bigger, the exoskeleton's getting tight, right? It's getting uncomfortable, right? It's getting too big for its own shell. So what does it do? It finds itself a cave away from everybody, right? And it sheds its shell. And it becomes completely vulnerable because now it's soft right now. Any prey that comes to it, don't got this hard exoskeleton, like it can attack it. But he's free, right? He's comfortable. He's out there. Eventually, that hard shell is going to grow back. He's going to take a little time. But he had to get so uncomfortable. He had to make himself get uncomfortable, you know what I'm saying, and make himself vulnerable to be there, okay.
To your point, when he shed that shell, he was in privacy.
Right.
He was in the cave,
right?
You know? So it's like, be vulnerable, but be vulnerable with the right people.
Absolutely, absolutely. We all have our friends, right?
Right.
So I think it goes to that, right? I think it's important to, you know, when you really have those core friends, you really got to hold true to them. Like and I know we've seen this video, and then like every time I see it, it irritates me. But it's like a group of kids, right? And they're all like at dinner, and then one friend didn't have no money to feed, and it was like, oh, he came out here and he ain't had no money. You know what I'm saying? Don't come out with the fellas if you broke. And they eating their like wings, and your boy, I mean, that's not your boy. Like that, like I can't do that. Like I don't know how many times I was going up and be like, yo, my man, you want to go to the movies? I ain't got no money. I didn't ask you if you had your money. I asked you if you want to go to the movies. So do you want to go to the movies? Yes or no? That's the question. The money, they will figure it out, right? I want you to be there. I want your time. I want to spend time with you, quality, wherever it is, right? If I gotta pay for it, I pay for it. Don't biggie. Yeah. You know, and those are the people that you can and be vulnerable. And that's why, like, I do this, right? Like I do this show, and I have my other one, my Fab with Fab, that I gotta get back onto it. But it's to allow us men to do that, right? Because we have been trained so hard, right? Growing up, don't cry, don't share your emotions. You got man up, toughen up, stay silent, right? Like, so one of my favorite dudes, and I think that's somebody that inspired me so much, Mr. Jason Wilson, in his book Cry Like a Man. If you haven't read it, I would highly recommend reading it. It's an awesome book. But he talks about that, right? Like that, man, we bottle up all this stuff and we put ourselves in what he calls emotional incarceration. Right? And we don't know how to deal with these things. That's why you see the guys out there who are, you know, having constant sex or doing drugs on a regular basis or alcoholism or going down and get all this stuff, because what's really happening is they have no idea how to deal with their feelings. You hear what I'm saying? They don't know what's going on because they don't know who to talk to. We all feel alone because we don't talk to anybody. So we don't know that you are going through the same thing that I am.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I'm saying? I don't know that you struggling to get diapers for your kids. You know what I mean? Like we could both be on the same page, but everybody puts on the front, right? Because we have to look good and be strong for other
Yeah.
people and not allow ourselves to be vulnerable.
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree. You got to find that space where you can be vulnerable comfortably. Cuz like, you know, once you have a family, a lot of the times like you got to be strong for that family.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're weak, you know, it's not people don't trust following you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like
Yeah.
yeah, so it's like you put up that front for the family, but it's healthy to have that space to be vulnerable.
You
To
know,
your point.
me and my wife have this conversation constantly,
Mhm.
right? And it's because I I tell her all the time, like, I cannot be weak around you. Like, I don't want you to see me weak, right? Like, so a lot of times when I'm struggling or I'm going through certain pains or I'm going through certain traumas or things like that, or, any kind of negative feeling, I put myself in an emotional incarceration, right? I lock everything up. I kind of get quiet. I silence off. I'm in the corner. Like, how you doing? I'm good. I'm straight. Everything. I'm fine. Yeah. I don't worry about it. You know what I mean? But what she knows I'm not all right. I know she knows I'm not all right. Like, I don't know who I'm fronting, but it's I'm not allowing myself to be vulnerable when I can, right? Like with Mary, you know what I'm saying? A lot of times when I do that and open up to her and see, like perfect example, right? I've come into terms more and more with the fact that I do have ADHD, right? It's fine, a lot of things that I struggle with too is that like I felt for the longest that I was like defective or broken, right? So a lot of the things that I do, because of the ADHD, I don't like to bring it up because I don't want her to think that I'm broken or I'm damaged, and then it's just like, oh, this, that, and the third. So I'm opening up more and more, and I'm sending her things about what it is and how it affects me and things that impact it. And one of the simplest things, right? Like they have this thing where it's like the fridge. I have a bad thing with fruit. Like I buy like apples and like things like that, but I don't eat them because I don't see them. It's like obligate displacement. So if I don't see them, I forget about them. They don't exist. They're in a different dimension, and they always go bad, right? So I showed her that. So she's seen that video, and part of what they said is like, you take all your condiments, like your ketchups and stuff, put them in the cabinet, right? Because if you want ketchup, you're gonna go looking for ketchup, right? Like it's obvious you're gonna need a condiment, right? And put the fruit in like the drawers or like out in the open, right, where the condiments would be, because now I see them and would want to do that. Her immediate reaction was like, let's do it. Not like, oh, this is weird, or like, oh my God, like, that's so silly, or that's not the normal thing to do. That's where they're supposed to be on the door. That's where the condiments go. It's what's made for. No, she's like, hey, let's do it. That's going to work for you. Let's do it. Right. And that's me allowing myself being vulnerable, right, with the right people to get what I need and feel comfortable. Right. So we need to have those people in our lives to be able to do that. And that's just, like I said, going back to that for you. Like, and it's true, right? We do have to protect ourselves, right? Because again, we know that not everybody's out to help you, but we also have to be willing to be a little bit of vulnerable, right? To put ourselves out there, right? There's no reward with no risk, right?
Yeah.
So you sometimes you have to do that, and but like you said to your point, right? Being self-aware, right, about these things, being mentally strong and knowing those things, and just willing to go out there and do that, right?
Yeah.
So
Uh,
all
No
the things are
risk,
coming
no
down there,
reward.
man. As we wind it down here, right? We got about a couple minutes left here to the show. I like to close it off with two questions, right? So
Okay.
if you think about it, right, and all of your experiences, right, and everybody that you've interacted, your different people that mentored you or taught you anything, what do you think has been the best advice you've ever received?
Best advice I've ever received. I gotta meditate on that one. I gotta meditate on. Can we go to the next question and come back, or this what
Well,
I?
it's kind of go one and the same, right? Because the next one's after that, right? If you had to think about it, right, and people coming up behind you, right, or the next
Mhm.
generation, what would be one piece of advice you would want to give them?
Okay. Best advice I've ever received. Okay, so there's just one quote that I like from Aristotle, and it's like, "We are what we repeatedly do. So excellence isn't an act, but a habit."
Ooh,
Yeah. So that's one quote
okay.
I really like. It's just like do your best. Do your best with whatever it is you do, whether it's something that's your calling or something that isn't, make it a habit to do your best. Don't don't reduce yourself because you might get to a point where it's like chill, but just do your best, and that should carry you into your purpose or whatever your calling is.
No, it's so fun how you said that. It's a very beautiful quote. And it reminds me very much of what my choir teacher said, Miss Inaguglia, right? That always stuck with me. She would always say, "Practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent." And that stuck with me, right? Like, because if you repeatedly do it, it's not that you're perfecting it, right? Because you could always improve, but you're getting in the habit, right? It's instinctual routine, right? It's muscle memory, and you're getting it to a point where it's just like instinctual. You don't have to think about it, think twice about it. So it made me. It was great because I know so much growing up, right? Everybody's like so bent on perfection. It's a myth. It doesn't exist. Let it go. You know what I mean? The quicker you just let it go, you'll be a lot easier, right? Things will be a lot better. Like so it's. I heard this joke right today, and it's talks about but it's about women, but I think it goes for people in general.
This bug is driving me crazy.
Oh,
I don't see him. You see this gnat over here playing games, man. Well, it's
gone.
Yeah.
But it was like so there's this new store, right? And it's a husband store, right? And so women can go there and find a husband, right?
Okay.
And there's 6 floors, right? And you can only go to the next floor. You can't go back, right?
Right.
So she goes in, right, looking for a husband, goes to the first floor, and it says, "This floor, men have jobs."
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, that sounds interesting, but let me see what's on the next floor. So she goes to the second floor, and it goes, okay, well, this floor, men have jobs and are very attractive. She's like, damn, okay, well, getting pretty sweet. Let me go to the third floor. So the third floor goes, this floor men have jobs, they're very attractive, and they love kids. Great, man. Let me see the next floor. Men have jobs, love kids, very attractive, do the stuff around the house, right? Next floor, another thing. Men have jobs, love kids, do stuff around the house, pay the bills, mentally sane. Great. She goes to the 6th floor, and the sign on the floor is a big old line. It says, "You are now patient 3,761." This floor, there are no husbands. This floor only exists to show that women are impossible to please, right? But I think it applies to everyone, right? That people always want more, right? We're always anticipating what's better, what's next. You know what I mean? Like, oh, we want something more fancy or flat, and never get satisfied with what we have now, right? One of my friends a while ago, Rich Chowsick, he said something that kind of stuck with me, and he was like, the grass isn't greener on the other side, right? But you got to be worried about what they do. You know what I mean? What they do to water that grass, right? And if you focus on your grass, you be too busy worried about what anybody else's grass looks like, right?
Yeah.
So learning to love what you have, right? Be appreciative, express gratitude, right? I think that's huge to what you said, right? Like to say that quote. And I don't know if you thought about it or not yet, but have you thought about what you received or best piece of advice that you've gotten so far?
Man, it's just so much.
I got you. The best advice, right, that you got so far is the one I gave you today. Share your voice, bro. Be heard, right? Get out there. I think I've waited too long in my life to accept my greatness, right? Like June Archer, man. Like I love his, another person I talk to, right? He's like, I walk in my dopeness, right? I accept my dopeness, right? You know what I mean? Like Floyd, right? He accepted, like for the longest time, right? I would look at Floyd Mayweather, right? And I was like, damn, this dude cocky as Max. But I started to really watch him, right? And started listening behind the scenes. And I'm like, why? He's doing great things, right? Like he's going out there, he's putting in the work, right? You see him in the gym, like, no, I'm not going. Dude works hard, right? He trains hard like crazy to be the best at what he does, right? Why not claim I'm the best at claim it? You work hard to do that. Why? Why should I let anybody else make me feel less, right? Than to do that, right? So we need to accept that, right? Like, and I know we like to be humble, and I've understood that yes, confidence and cocky are two different things. I'm not trying to express anything to say that I'm better than anyone, but I'm a star. That's plain and simple, right? Not better than you know what I'm saying? Like Carl, like he a star. I love it. I praise his work. You know what I'm saying? I don't want what he has. You know what I mean? Like our views are different, but I respect him. I love what he has, right? You know what I'm saying? Like big ups to you. Help you whatever I can. Same for you, right? That's why I want to be a part of your event. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't want what you want in life, right? I want to see you succeed at whatever it is you want to do. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not gonna try to make you put down for it, or if you claiming to be the best at what you do, hey, if I see you put in the work, I'll back you up to it. Right. So we need to accept that, right? Like let's walk in our dopeness, accept who we are, man, and don't be afraid to share your voice. So I'll give you that one.
That's a good piece of advice.
Well, man, awesome, man. You know what? It was amazing talking to you, man. I wish you, again, like everybody, man, nothing but success. I know you have a lot of things doing. Like you have the consulting thing. We didn't get to talk about that. I don't know, and things that get into the use.
Yeah, I mean, if we have time, I'll plug. So I run a small business consulting practice. Goal is to really make it a family thing where we all collaborate, work together to build up our community, build up our community businesses, build up our people. So on a individual level, like I hear the stories, I hear the struggles of people who are struggling with finances, and I try and position them to get in better health, financial health. Like it's not even they can't do, it's just the information barrier.
Right.
Like one guy I'm talking to, he just wants to get a better credit score, get a secured card. He doesn't know though. Yeah, and I work with small businesses also, just helping them with marketing and whatnot. Uh, Recently opened up a trade school, indoor comfort training center in Norwalk, 25 Van Zandt Street. For those who want to forego the college process, I've heard of a lot of students after this who actually went to college, got a degree, and then started a trade after. So that was very interesting to me. But kids who want to learn or get certified in plumbing or HVAC, that's your alley. Um, the third is the ABC program, national program that many people aren't aware of, but it's a program for gifted kids. They have to test well, go through 18 months of testing to get into the program, but they're basically plugged into a better school system that affords them
Awesome.
a better network, better schooling, and a better chance. The fourth, I don't, I don't remember what the fourth was. I'm having a brain fart right here.
That's all we draw, Brian, man. No way, man. We definitely get up and plug those. I know you have a lot of wonderful things going on, and we want to make those things happen. And I'll definitely plug and share. We have these events. We'll probably come down to one of your locations and do something there too, man, and get you out there. I think you're doing great things for the community. Financial literacy is super important, right? Like we know that growing up, like I've like I just said this recently. Like I just now for my most recent job, I filled out my tax form without having to call my mom for the first time. You know what I mean? On how to do my W-2 paperwork. And that's, I'm 36 years old. It's kind of sad, but we need to really get these kids that head start and really teach them the things that they need to know. So I think what you're doing is amazing. And we can definitely do that, man. So thank you so much for taking the time and meeting with me tonight, and being here. Thank you again, Carl, opening up your doors for us and doing this thing. And as always, everybody, man, please, as no matter who you are, no matter what you've done, your big brother loves you. Stay blessed, everybody.
Right. City, and after work I was like I was gonna meet up with them. That was the plan. So we went to a music studio, and I have videos of this all. I could forward it to you.
What was that?
Yeah, we went to a studio downtown New York and played music together, and that's